for NATO to intervene militarily and topple Muammar Gaddafi. Citing crimes against humanity and a potential genocide perpetrated against the Libyan people by Gaddafi's government, NATO began a bombing campaign in Libya. The NATO bombing campaign also resulted in damage inflicted to resources used by civilians, particularly the water supply, which resulted in much of the country being deprived of drinkable water. It was in fact NATO which debilitated Libya's water supply by targeting critical state-owned water installations, including a water pipe factory in Brega. The factory, one of just two in the country, the other one being in Gaddafi's hometown of Sirte, manufactured pre-stressed concrete cylinder pipes for the Great Man-Made River Project, an ingenious irrigation system transporting water from aquifers beneath Libya's southern desert to about 70% of the population. Notably, NATO failed to provide evidence that the water installations were housing pro-Gaddafi combatants when pressed. The bombing campaigns conducted by NATO also very likely killed civilians.
Another thing I wanted to say, that please always remember one thing about Libya. This has nothing to do with, oh, Gaddafi's a dictator. That's the bullshit that they give you as a cover story. This was all about the gold in the Libyan central bank and Gaddafi trying to make an African currency, a pan-African currency, which would have gotten rid of the dollar and gotten rid of the CFA, which is the French currency, which they use in 14 African countries. Think about that, right? There's a currency in 14 African countries which is French and controlled by the French, right? So much for decolonization. So Gaddafi's idea was, let's move away from these currencies. Let's make an African currency, and then we only sell our African resources in this African currency. So look, he's got 143 tons of gold in the bank. He wants to create a new currency. The French are aware of this, and they're trying to. They internally, this is what was driving them to get rid of him, because that was the real threat, right? The West don't care about how he's treating his people, all this bullshit. You think they care about how Saudi Arabia treats their people? A million times worse, and they let them get away with it because Saudi Arabia is useful. So it's all about, are you with us? Are you benefiting us? Or are you in the way? If you're in the way, we'll get rid of you, and we will paint you as a dictator and blah, blah, blah. There's a whole PR campaign to justify the aggression. And remember who did this? NATO, the defensive alliance.